say now, you're tuned into the Wake Up and Win podcast, and I am your host, DeVon Pouncey. We are here at the Momentum Studios in the city of Portland, Oregon. Oregon.
Yes, sir.
On the line right now, we have a first-time guest on the Wake Up and Win podcast. I'm used to having this guest on the Street Roots podcast, but today he's coming over to this side to talk a little sports with me. A very special guest, United States Senior Senator of Oregon, Senator Ron Wyden. Thanks for joining, man.
Hey, DeVon, thank you. That's some serious inflation in terms of building me up that way. I just know it's fun to be with you.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you here again. You know, I talk to you all the time on the Street Roots podcast. I'm always grateful for your willingness to join that podcast, but even more grateful to have you here on this podcast now. We got a lot to get to in regards to women's basketball in particular. But for starters, you already see I'm repping. I got my Destiny Henderson t-shirt on.
I'm telling you, Ms. Henderson's lucky to have you in her corner. I mean, you're putting it out there on the show.
Absolutely. I got to do it. I'm a big fan of Destiny Henderson. So for those that don't know, Destiny Henderson plays for the Indiana Fever, but fresh off of winning the national championship under Coach Don Staley over at University of South Carolina. But Senator Wyden, let's just get straight to it, because you led a Senate resolution in regards to the wrongful detainment of Brittney Griner over in Russia. And first, I want to just ask, why was it significant to you to take the lead in this bipartisan resolution in regards to Brittney Griner and her being wrongfully detained in Russia?
Well, obviously, I'm very interested in sports. I'm very interested in women's sports. But I think this is just a basic human rights violation. I mean, Ms. Griner is not a politician. You know, Mr. Putin is obviously mad at, us over the Russia-Ukraine war. I mean, it was something he started, but let's set aside the politics of it. Ms. Griner, to her credit, has apologized and I think been very straightforward. And I just wanted to help out her and the family. She's got folks that she's close to in Oregon and connections, here. And they reached out and said, Ron, would you lead it? You're a basketball player. You care about human rights. You care about, Ms. Griner. I said, I would be thrilled to lead it. We reached out to Senator John Cornyn of Texas. She, of course, played at Baylor.
Yep.
Got the Arizona senators. They were thrilled to help out. And, of course, she's on the team, in Arizona. So, the Senate is on record. Senators of widely differing philosophies saying this is a human rights situation. She's being used, in effect, as a political, weapon. It's not right, and she ought to be returned home to her loved ones.
Absolutely. Speak more to the bipartisan element. Obviously, you being in Senate, you're well aware of maybe, your Republican colleagues that may disagree with some of the things that you may be attempting to push through, especially in your position as a senior senator here in Oregon, the chair of the Senate Finance Committee. But talk about the significance of that bipartisan support, because I don't think we always get that on just about most things. So to be able to have that here, just speak more to that.
Well, it certainly shows the respect that Ms. Griner engenders in the Senate. I'll tell you, DeVon, sometimes the United States Senate, you can't get people to agree to order a 7-Up, for Pete's sakes. And
yeah,
here they are, Senator Cornyn, Senator Cruz didn't bat an eye. They said, we're on. The Arizona senators, they said, we're on. And, the whole point, really is, Ms. Griner apologizing was certainly very straightforward in, acknowledging that said it was a mistake. This is just so disproportionate. The suffering that she's going through is just not right. And we just want her back with her loved ones. And we want her to be in a position to be healthy and be in a position to enjoy in her career and her life wherever it leads.
Absolutely. I'm curious, when you hear the sentencing, she got upwards of 9 years sentenced. The maximum sentence that she could have gotten was 10 years. Obviously, you combine the sentence that she got with time served, she essentially got the book thrown at her. What was your initial reaction when you heard that Brittney Griner got basically the maximum sentence in this ordeal.
Well, it was just like a punch in terms of so out of proportion with what she had done and the fact that she had apologized. She wasn't waffling through it. She said, mistake on me, period.
Yeah, for sure.
I think this was sent as a political message. Now, some people are going back and forth. Well, if you plead guilty, you get the sentence, and that means that it accelerates the negotiations and all the rest. I'm just telling you, it's time for her to no longer be used as a kind of political pawn in this fight. Shall be returned.
Absolutely. You speak to this being sort of a political message from Russia, which I tend to agree with. On our end, here being in the United States, you obviously being in the United States Senate, what is it that we can do now that we're in this situation? We know that she's gotten this sentence. I know that there's been prisoner trade offers that have been made from the Biden administration, but is there any kind of a next step now that we know what position that we're in, being that she's been sentenced?
DeVon, what I've been trying to do at every step of the way is comply with the family's, desires. Certainly the exposure that the NBA, WNBA players have done. I mean, we have people in the NBA showing how supportive they are. And I think anyone who can speak up for her, and I see a lot of people wearing her jersey and the like. I think it's all being in solidarity with the cause to show again. I mean, be one thing if Ms. Griner said, "Oh, this wasn't fair," and that they planted evidence or some such thing. She said, "My mistake on me."
She was accountable. She was accountable.
She sure was. It was a really stand-up kind of statement, and I'm just of the view that all of us ought to be using our voice to stand up for Ms. Griner, and when you add up the voices, it becomes a roar for justice. That's what we're trying to do, DeVon.
For sure. I know you're also a champion for the cannabis industry here in the United States of America. So when you consider the fact that Brittney Griner was detained and obviously has been sentenced to about 10 years in Russia for less than a gram of cannabis oil, what does that mean to you in regards to the American citizens in particular, and feeling like there does need to be more of a push in regards to the legalization of cannabis nationwide? Because there's obviously been people here in the United States that have been what I would consider wrongfully detained as well for similar, kind of petty crimes, if you will, because it certainly seemed petty, the crime that she so-called committed out there comparison to the punishment.
Well, I think we're on our way to getting reform in the United States. Senator Schumer, Senator Booker, and myself have all introduced the bill. The bill will go to the Senate Finance Committee that I chair. I'm very supportive of Mr. Booker leading the effort in terms of equity and justice. I mean, so much of this past has just been, unfair to communities of color, and there's been such unnecessary, undue suffering. And the fact is, this is long overdue. Time to end reefer madness. And Senator Booker and I and Senator Schumer are all united in terms of expungement of records and ensuring that people who were wrongfully, detained and convicted get a chance to move on with their lives. I mean, if you're a young person and you face this and face it in a discriminatory way, you ought to be in a position to get your records expunged and in a position to get back on with your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sticking with the WNBA here, the playoffs just began yesterday. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm repping Destiny Henderson right now with my shirt. We're obviously talking about Brittney Griner, who is a superstar of a women's basketball player, a WNBA superstar, obviously, when she's here and allowed to play. But, Senator Wyden, I feel like the city of Portland and at large the state of Oregon has really held women's sports in high regard. And every time the WNBA playoffs come around, there's always conversations about WNBA expansion. For you, what would it be like to have a WNBA team here in the city of Portland, especially knowing your fandom already of the Portland Trailblazers? We talk about it quite often on the Street Roots podcast about you and your Blazer fandom, but how can we advocate to try to get a WNBA team if the WNBA indeed takes the expansion route?
Well, let me make it a little more immediate, even, DeVon. It's a very fine point that you made. I was over at the Sports Bra yesterday. Ooh. Over on Broadway in Northeast.
For some of the listeners that may not be aware of the Sports Bra, can you talk about it a little bit?
Jenny, the owner, runs professional sports almost 24/7, and it's all women's sports.
Yes, indeed.
All women's sports. And I'm sitting there, and folks are saying hello and saying, Ron, glad you passed the bill. You wrote the medicine and the climate and those reforms. And we had a nice conversation. And then they all started talking about the WNBA. And I said, folks, can you imagine what it would be like? Our sitting here on a sunny afternoon in summer in Portland, what it would be like here on Broadway at Jenny's Bra if everybody was getting ready for a WNBA playoff game in Portland Moda in a few hours. We probably, it would have been a decent walk, but good little exercise. And I talked about, think of how excited our city would have been. Think about the fact that it would have brought in a lot of money, to Portland. That's a plus as well. Think about the fact that if you have a WNBA team, you get 18 dates at Moda. That helps the Trailblazers. I've been on the phone with Adam Silver several times recently, making the case for why we got to keep the Trailblazers in Portland, why we got to have a WNBA team. And I just think yesterday afternoon brought it all home. I can only imagine how excited. I mean, DeVon, Northeast, and I have been knowing Northeast and those streets for a lot of years, having town hall meetings. You probably couldn't even heard yourself talk. There had been so much noise and so much people in the streets with Blazer, colors and stuff. So we're just going to pull out all the stops, and I'm making the case to Mr. Silver, the commissioner, that it is so important to have the team in Portland. We all were thrilled with the news that Mr. Knight, the founder of Nike, already made a very impressive offer, and they have negotiations and all this kind of thing. I've talked to Mr. Knight many times over the years about keeping the team in Portland. I never get into any kind of private conversations and the like, but he founded Nike. He's been involved in every philanthropy imaginable here in Oregon. It sent a really positive message. I just want Jody Allen to move this along more quickly. It's her decision, but I'll tell you, DeVon, I am on guard every single day against the kind of situation that happened up in Seattle, where basically practically overnight, the team was gone, gone from there to Oklahoma. We're not going to let that happen on our watch. And I just will continue to press the case. And a lot of people, I thought your point, DeVon, early when you started the show about how this time of year, everybody talks about their interest, WNBA teams. I've had a number of people express their interest to me, and women and others who are very influential in the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I got to finish off with this one, Senator Wyden. I'm the TV analyst for Portland State's men's basketball team.
I heard.
And
hey, DeVon, I got a question though, young man.
Talk to me.
When do you ever sleep? Because you're doing all these shows and they're all good and we all enjoy them. And I wake up and I say, I hear DeVon over here. I hear DeVon over there. And now you're doing broadcast play-by-play at college. You are the indestructible man.
Hey, man, I'll sleep when the man above calls me home. How about that?
There you are. Oh, my goodness. That is biblical, my friend. I can't compete with that.
Hey, what can I say? But again, me being the TV analyst there, just this morning, the schedule was released for Portland State's men's basketball team. And it just so happened that mid-December, just about a week or so before Christmas time, your alma mater, UC Santa Barbara will be coming to the Viking Pavilion to face off against Portland State. There's kind of a couple questions here. One, where's your rooting interest? Obviously, being that Portland State is here in the state of Oregon, where you hold the senator seat. But also, maybe we could put some kind of a friendly wager on it, maybe dinner or something. If you decide that you want to go with UC Santa Barbara, but if not, then we'll just ride together. We'll just cheer for Portland State.
call up the Senate Ethics Committee and see if I can put a burger or something from Jenny's on the line. So, DeVon, let me just kind of walk through this with a slight correction. See, I went to Cal Santa Barbara on a basketball scholarship.
Okay.
Dreaming of playing in the NBA.
Right.
A ridiculous idea. At 6'4", I was too small, and I made up for it by being slow.
Got you.
So, wasn't going to make that.
Okay.
And so I played freshman ball and varsity ball.
Right.
And then I transferred to Stanford, where apparently they thought I was going to play. But nobody really asked, and they put out a sweatshirt and everything, and that was about the end of it. But there's one other interesting bit of basketball connection is I did, before I chose Santa Barbara, get offered a full scholarship from Gonzaga.
Okay.
Which, as you know, plays serious ball.
Yeah.
And I put that up on my wall in Washington, D.C., and people walk by and hope you come visit in the office sometime, maybe seeing some games back east.
For sure.
And they said, Ron, would you put that up on the wall? You don't have a lot of basketball stuff here. I said, I put that Gonzaga scholarship up there because I wanted to show long after I'm gone that a Jewish kid could play with the Jesuits. So there you are. That sorts it out. Now, my rule with respect to Oregon sports is I root for the Oregon team against everybody. Okay. That's my hard rule. Now, if there isn't an Oregon team in it, then I'll definitely be supportive of the two colleges I attended, UCSB on the basketball scholarship, then getting my bachelor's, my AB at Stanford, but got to root for the Oregon teams. This is, you talk about something that's kind of in our genes and is sacred. We root for the Oregon teams, and we'll have to see what the schedule is. The Senate does do the lame duck at the end of the year, and so sometimes that's been kind of hectic. But it would be great to be there watching in action. And Hank Stern, our wonderful comms guy, already tells me he's gonna be there, and he wants to see if he can wangle a sideline interview with you.
Hey, I'm with it. Come on, Hank. And if you are in town, again, it is the holiday season.
Love to do it.
So potentially you'll be in town. If you are in town, I'd love to bring you down to half court right at the scores table where we do the broadcast, and we can do a quick segment with you on ESPN Plus. How about that?
I think it sounds good. It sounds like everything except you get the pixie dust and throw it in the air.
And interestingly enough, you mentioned Gonzaga. Gonzaga's also on Portland State's schedule this year as well. Gonzaga will play against Portland State on Thanksgiving night at the Field Night Invitational here at the Moda Center. A lot of the Nike schools from across the country, men's and women's, will be coming down Thanksgiving weekend to play in Field Night's tournament celebrating his 85th birthday. And it's already on the schedule that Portland State will be playing against the Zags at the Moda on Thanksgiving night.
That sounds like a great game, DeVon, and my son probably would really like catching Gonzaga as well. That would that'd be good, and it is a special birthday for Mr. Knight.
Absolutely. So we'll follow up when the time is there for both of those games. Senator, absolutely. Well, again, thank you for joining me here on the Wake Up and Win podcast. You're already a friend of the show on the Street Roots podcast. Well, guess what, my friend? You are now a friend of the show on the Wake Up and Win podcast as well. Thanks so much for taking the time to join.
Well, thank you, DeVon. And I just want folks to know that whether it's this show or Street Roots and the like, you always learn a lot about sports, and you learn a lot about what it takes for a community to thrive, which is to treat everyone with respect.
Absolutely.
And that's what DeVon has always done, and what I always appreciate whenever I get off one of your broadcasts. I said, DeVon every single day makes our community a better place, and we're very appreciative.
Much appreciation for that, Senator Wyden. We'll be in touch.
To be continued, friend. Thank you.
Indeed. I think that's all I got for this week, man. Senator Wyden, again, thank you for joining us here on the Wake Up and Win podcast. I'll probably do a little bit of a write-up on the interview that we had today and publish it in Street Roots as well. So huge thanks to Senator Wyden for joining us. Again, appreciate, his support in the position that he's in for that of Brittney Griner and Free BG. Free BG. On that note, we're going to leave y'all the only way that we know how, and that is to stay woke and go win.